All right, we are live. All right, so thank you for joining us again. My name's Alex, and I'll be hosting this great FCM Q&A. Our guest today is the wonderful Joe Turner. Thank you very much, Joe. Welcome.
Hi.
Woo! Other people are clapping. You just can't hear them.
Okay.
So how you doing today, Joe?
Doing great, thank you.
Well,
Been looking forward to it.
absolutely, me too, man. I heard you got lots of good stuff to give away, lots of new, neat lecture notes, and I'm really looking forward to the whole thing.
Okay.
Before we get to the lecture, just while everything's building up, thing I always ask everybody is, for people who may not know who are you, and kind of what do you do within the realm of magic, and maybe where did you get your start in magic?
All right. My name is Joe Turner. I live near Atlanta, Georgia. I've been a full-time working pro for 14 years, a little over 14 years now. In magic, I work mostly in the corporate environment, the corporate market. I work as a speaker and entertainer for meetings, corporate events. I speak at some conferences. I come from a background in management consulting with a large management consulting firm, and so I sort of added magic to that years ago and sprung into this new career that we can talk about later. I'm very involved with the IBM. I'm the international president-elect at the moment. I'll become international president next summer in Jacksonville. So been involved with them for several years. Write for Genie, which I've been writing for Genie about 14 years as well, and write video reviews. So if you've heard of me, there's no reason anyone should have heard of me. I'm just a guy working in the trenches. But if you happen to think the name is familiar, it's probably from the Linking Ring or Genie. Or maybe we've run across each other at a convention.
That's awesome, man. And that was kind of the same thing that we had talked about when I first spoke. I'm like, I know that name. I've seen, and I'd seen the face before. But it was one of those things that now, after we talked, I've been able to go through and see what you've done, and I go, I'm more familiar with you than I thought.
Well, I appreciate it. I'm certainly no star in the magic world, but I have made a living and supported my family and had some nice experiences as a full-time pro. Made a lot of mistakes and learned some lessons that hopefully I can share. So, I mean, my ambition was never to go to Vegas and have a show or be a TV star or any of that. I just wanted to execute this art in the way that I thought resonated best with me and my background and make a living at it. And I have done that. So.
Absolutely, man. Now, I know we have a few things lined up. We have some really neat contests. We have a bit of a lecture and, of course, the Q&A. Did you want to start with your lecture, or did you want to start with the Q&A?
I think I'd like to start, and I don't know that this qualifies quite as a lecture, but I will set the table with a little bit of description of how I transitioned into this as a full-time performer, because I think it may be enlightening to people. I know when I first came into magic, for real. Not when I was a kid. I was interested in magic when I was 5 or 10, and all of those things, and performed as a magician at birthday parties and neighborhood talent shows and things. But when I came back to magic as an adult, I was enamored with the idea that people could make a living doing this. I was in the corporate world, cubicles and offices and things like that, and it's a little dry. It had its moments, but I was really enamored with magic and the idea that people were actually out there making a living doing this. Well, and certainly what I thought was reality and what turned out to be reality aren't necessarily identical. There's a lot of people out there working part-time, and they have full-time jobs or careers in other realms, but they do a lot of really great work as a performer part-time. And so I learned to really respect that a lot as I've been have gone along this path. I left the corporate world in the October of 2000. The organization I was with is headquartered in Charlotte, North Carolina, and they wanted me to move from Atlanta up to Charlotte. This was not something I wanted to do with my family, so I thought, well, I'll just say my goodbyes. We'll be on good terms, and I'll find something else, thinking I would go into another corporate career. Well, this was recession 1.0, if you recall, not this most recent recession, but the one before that. People were laying off every day, and I just all the interviews I was getting for new positions would have required me to take a pay cut. So I thought, well, if I'm going to take a pay cut anyway, I'll just do this. I had been doing magic for fun on the side, making some spending money and covering convention expenses and things like that. I said, well, I'll just see what I can do. And I jumped right into magic with no sales experience, no experience as an entrepreneur, never had to market myself in any way. And I really just bumped my head on every conceivable wall that there is in this business, and still do from time to time. I've had to learn from hard knocks. I did not major in business or marketing or management, so a lot of these things I've had to learn the hard way. I didn't do any personal networking or really know how to sell myself for the first couple of years I was in business, and it was dumb luck really that kept me afloat. So I have advice for people who might be considering a move, and we can talk about that. But the story of that transition is one of lessons that I think should be taken to heart in terms of the way we prepare if we're going to make a jump. My family was very supportive and still are. Not financially as much as in the past, but at the time I needed help to make it come together. Couldn't have done it without my wife being supportive and my parents and her parents. I mean, we have kids, and it's kind of risky to roll the dice like that. Insurance is a big consideration, and how are you going to go to the doctor if you get sick, or if your wife gets sick, or if your kids are ill? And it's tremendous consideration. And then just if people have questions about how I market myself or how I run the business itself, I'll be happy to address those. So I just wanted to sort of set the table for questions by saying this is the background that I came from. Right. So I know a lot of people in magic started performing as teenagers and never stopped, and that's all they've done from day one is perform magic, make money, perform magic, and they just grew their business bit by bit from the time they were kids. And that's not the path that I took, and so it was a little bit different for me.
And for me, especially as somebody who's making that exact same jump currently, I'm 25 right now, I'll be 26 at the end of next month. I didn't start even learning about what really magic was, or my first card trick till I was 23. And then it just all kind of rolled in. I'm an AC tech by trade, and I'm slowly not doing that and doing more of this. So I'm making that transition right now. So especially for me, maybe more than some of the other viewers, this is going to be very informative.
Well, I take heart in the fact that Larry Jennings was a plumber and didn't come to magic until late in life, and that Al Goshman didn't come to magic until later in life. And so compared to those guys, I have a head start. Now, I don't have the talent that some of them had, but I'm pretty good at the things that I choose to do, and we'll talk about the material later. But there's a place for people to come to this and be successful in business in magic later than you think. So, in fact, I think there may be a benefit to coming to this after having been in the real world, and particularly in the corporate arena, because you have some battle scars and some credibility that maybe other people haven't had over those. Over the years of being strictly in magic from the time they were kids. The fact that I can point to some real-world experiences in the corporate world is a competitive advantage for me.
Right. There's a lot of life experiences that I went out and had to go through and do that people who have just performed and always performed their entire life just would have never experienced because, I was helping run a company, I was doing this, doing that. So I absolutely get that. Actually, I had a question I was just kind of going through the questions while we were talking.
Okay.
And I had one that kind of piqued my interest and it's kind of relevant. Siobhan asks, how did you become so confident when performing and speaking, especially since you coming from a corporate world where again that's cubicles. There's you talk to your coworkers, you may talk to your
Right.
boss, but there's not a lot of presentation, and it's not really on the line sort of stuff like hundreds of people.
Well, for me, let me answer that in two parts. Let me ask a question. First, is it Siobhan? I'm not sure how to pronounce the name. I'm not sure I heard it correctly. Is it her?
I've talked to her about this, and she says it sounds like Siobhan.
But I'm not saying it. Well, at any rate, I just wanted, Siobhan, thank you for the question. Before I was in the corporate world, I did study theater. I studied physics and theater in college, so I did have quite a lot of on-stage experience in front of dozens, hundreds, and more people in different types of productions. So a lot of the stage fright and learning to be comfortable on stage or on a platform or in front of a group, I had crossed a lot of those bridges in college. In my corporate career, there was a lot of cubicle stuff, but I was a trainer. And so I designed and developed and delivered live training for corporate audiences, as well as some computer-based training, web-based training. So I was, in fact, teaching and speaking in front of groups. That being said, how would I recommend someone who wants to transition into this would develop confidence? It's flight time, and I think that that's why there is a place in our business for particularly ambitious newcomers to the art to take advantage of free performing opportunities. I still will take on one or two opportunities a month just for the sake of keeping my skills sharp, being in front of groups. It's a marketing opportunity for me. I don't want to work for free all the time, but for causes that I respect or opportunities that present themselves, I'm certainly open to that idea. And you get confident in performing, I think, by having a firm grounding in theatrical fundamentals, how to stand and move on stage, how to project your voice when you're speaking or singing. Those types of things will come. I think it's critical to have some theater training. Go get involved in a local community theater, do some productions at your church or perhaps a club around town. Those kinds of opportunities will directly affect how confident you are when you take the stage alone as a performer doing magic. And to become confident on the other side of that in speaking, it's preparation and knowing before you get in front of that group who's in this audience, why have they asked me to be here, what does success for this event look like to the people who asked me to come. And if the most they can tell you is we want people to leave happy, we want them to remember this message, we want, I build the confidence by preparing to deliver what the client has asked you to deliver. And if you know you've got that, then you can take the stage confident. A lot of lack of confidence that I see in speakers and performers comes from people who really don't know what they want to do when they get on the stage, and they haven't really prepared, and they're putting it together on the fly, or maybe they've taken a gig or an opportunity that they shouldn't have, and they know in their mind and their heart they really aren't qualified to be in front of this particular group at this particular time, but they took it anyway. And so, yeah, there's going to be a lack of confidence in that setting. So build confidence by taking as many gigs as you can in the places where you know you're going to be good, or stretch a little bit, and that way you'll grow into the opportunities where you can get in front of 1,000 people and not worry so much.
Absolutely. And, so that's something you touched on, doing presentations and the like. I found that coming into this field, having done public speaking and whatnot, I was on a city board for
Yep.
now members, all sorts of stuff.
Right.
So you have to be able to speak well. You have to be able to speak clearly. You have to be able to enunciate. And especially with me, I have just a slight speech impediment that comes through when I focus on it. So I had to learn how to stop, slow down, and stop mumbling. So going out and performing, getting all the what did you say? It teaches you to slow down, teaches you to let yourself be able to speak, so to speak.
I couldn't agree more. When you take if you're in college or if you're still in school, avail yourself of public speaking or drama classes. If you are out of school, take advantage of opportunities in civic organizations or church groups or community theaters where you might have the opportunity to audition. And I think it's important to maintain those skills throughout the way you interact. That's going to come back. Every time you go market yourself as a performer, you're on stage. They're judging your product by, I mean, we don't sell widgets. We don't sell car parts or food or things that you would open a storefront. We don't sell even magic tricks. All we have as performers to sell is our personality. Even before our skills, people want to buy who we are and how we make them feel. And if you don't have the tools in your box to communicate that on a stage or in front of a group, then more important than the second deal, more important than a poem, is the ability to communicate well, present yourself well, have good posture. It sounds obvious, I guess, but just to be a commanding presence in front of a room is more important and maybe even more difficult than some of the magic techniques. They come secondary.
I couldn't agree more. That was something that was brought up in Peter Turner's interview. No relation. He would say, beyond sleight of hand, beyond my mentalism principles, these are all just tools in my toolbox. When I'm out dealing with somebody and dealing with a prospective client or dealing with an audience, I'm going to use whatever tools in my toolbox I need to create the effects that are desired. Do I want them happy? Do I want them appreciative? Do I want them wowed? Let's bring out that tool.
Right. Yeah, it applies not just when you're developing a show, but when you're developing the way you present your business to the marketplace. That's a show of its own. And the way you present yourself when you go out to meet clients or look for clients or interact with business groups or however it is that you're seeking out the people who are interested in what you do, if you present well, and by that I don't mean give a presentation well, I mean if you present yourself as a confident, capable person, you'll stand out in comparison to people who are just not quite there for lack of having developed those muscles.
Right, and just as a bit of a sidebar, and this is something I touched on before, but it makes sense here. Confidence is one of those things that some people have and some people don't, but fake it. If you can fake it, just fake it. It'll eventually come. That's how all the people who are confident, they're not confident. They're faking it, almost guaranteed most of the time. They just fake it well.
Absolutely. When you start, I mean, you'll get more confidence with more preparation. But when you start and you have that nervous energy, or you're about to be introduced, or you're about to go to some kind of expo that you've never been to before, and you're going to meet some potential clients, it's good to feel a little anxious about it, a little energy, a little nervous energy. You can channel that into being sparkling and electric when you're interacting with people and giving a firm handshake and representing yourself well. But you'll be more confident if you've prepared, how am I going to introduce what I do to other people? If I go someplace and I just say, yeah, I'm Joe, I'm a magician, that doesn't really tell my story to them. It doesn't help them see who I can be or what I can do for them. I need to present my magic skills or my the way I combine that with my corporate knowledge, whatever that is. It's most important to me to find out about them and what they're looking for, because I don't want to try to sell them a speaking engagement if they're booking close-up performer for a big reception. So if I listen first, and then I've prepared in advance some short, bullet point phrasing of, oh, yeah, it's interesting to find out that you're planning this large event, because that's what I do. I'm a performer who entertains at these kinds of receptions. Oh, really? What do you do? Well, I do sleight of hand magic and mind reading in a mobile environment. Oh, well, that sounds interesting. Tell me more. That conversation doesn't get started if you just say, well, I'm Joe, I'm a magician, because in their mind, I'm a magician may mean, oh, magicians are people who do large stage illusions, and therefore it doesn't connect with what they want. Or magicians are people who, wear capes and bring rabbits out of hats, the sort of the stereotypical cartoon version of a magician. So that doesn't connect with them. So for me, success has come from listening to what they are trying to put together, and then helping them paint that picture as I present what I do, and planning ahead so that I have the right way to phrase my strengths for that environment, whenever that comes up in the conversation.
Right, and I think that's an advantage you have coming from the corporate world, is you're used to having a client, and you're used to having to listen to the client and hear, not so much hear what they're saying to you, but be able to read between the lines and hear what they really want from you, and being able to hear those objections and being able to translate those objections properly to meet their demands.
I would say ask that when you meet somebody, you're introduced to somebody, you bump into someone at, let's say that you've gone to some kind of Chamber of Commerce expo or annual business event of some kind, and you're just meeting people. When you find out who they are, what company they work for, if you can identify what their responsibility is, then they may say, well, I'm in human resources, or I'm in some kind of event management. Would be great if they're in some kind of event planning, but they may not be. Maybe they're an executive assistant, and they work in, for someone who's vice president of payroll. But if you find out who they are, you can take that conversation and ask, oh, well, tell me about some of the kinds of things that you would do in that. I don't know anyone who does that, or what does that look like in your organization? And they can let them talk. The most important thing is get the other person to talk, and when you listen, and then you can present what you do in a way that is relevant to them. Siobhan, if she's there still, is she a close-up? Are you interested in close-up magic or stand-up magic of some kind? Because I'd like to give you a prize for having the first question.
She is around. She hasn't posted again, and there is a bit of a latency, so we'll see her post up again. But okay. I'll PM her at some point and let her know, just in case that she has a prize waiting for her.
Very good. All right.
No, and I couldn't agree more, man. I had a point I was going to make there, but you threw me with Siobhan there.
Yeah. I see a lot of questions have come in.
Yeah. The next one I was actually going to go for, and you kind of touched on it, and I wanted to get a little bit more of your opinion, was Scott Anderson was wondering what's the best way to market yourself, or rather, what has been the most successful way you found to market? I know you'd spoken about doing a few free shows and things like that. What else?
Okay, well, my marketing is a stool with 3 legs. There are 3 legs on a stool, so there's 3 things that I do to market myself. And this is all sitting on the foundation of having a quality presentation, a quality show. So you have a good product to take to market. Now, how am I going to market it? First of all, I have live interactive networking. I go out and try to grow the number of contacts that I have in my community. I try to interact with the clients that I currently have. When I first transitioned into Magic full-time and had no clients, what did I have? I had family. I had previous coworkers. I had people I knew at church. I had people I knew in my neighborhood. So that's a list. You can start by making a list of the people that you have in your current social circle, whatever that universe is. Start by making a list. And every one of them needs to become a cheerleader for you, a part of your marketing staff. And so you take people to lunch, you go have coffee with people, you see them if you go to Sunday school, or if you see them at the bar, if you see them at the football game, whatever it is. You don't just jump on them like you're trying to direct sale something to them. That's not it. But you make sure that they are aware of what you're doing and the kinds of things that you're looking to do. Let's say I wanted to grow my birthday party business. Everybody I know needs to know that when they hear that there's somebody who's turning 6 or 8 or 10 or 15 or whatever my market is, that's the part of my business I really want to grow. So all I want to do is have my name put in front of those. Here's some business cards. Here's my website. And help them help you. Don't say, I want to perform for everybody. Give them something to focus on, because there's too many everybody's. But if you say, anyone you hear whose child is having a birthday and they're under 12 years old, I need them to have my business card, or I need them to have my website. So if you hear of that, please connect me with them. So networking with those people and then having them introduce you to people that they know, and growing larger by larger your circle of contacts. That is the first key. So growing my personal network. Second, social networking. It wasn't even as big a thing when I first came into Magic as it is now, but it is critical that I have some kind of strategy for keeping myself in front of the people who want to connect with me on Facebook, Twitter, or other platforms. So I use tools like Hootsuite and Buffer and other things that you would find online to keep myself in front of those people by sharing things that are relevant to them. Not always about me. Maybe 1 out of 10 or 2 out of 10 posts might be specifically about me. The rest of the time it's observations of things that I think might be relevant to people who are in the market I want to connect with. So if I see a story in the news that relates to the kinds of messages that I deliver, I want to share that so that people who have seen my presentations or have seen my show, like if I'm straight entertainment and I know people are connecting with me because they love Magic, then this whole America's Got Talent Magic winner, that's fodder for sharing. But I used to get worried when people shared information with me and they were like, Joe, have you seen such and such magician on America's Got Talent, or on this show or that show, or did you see that? And there's a certain part of you as a performer that's like, why are you watching all those other performers? I thought you liked me, right? But what that means, it's a really good thing, and I've learned this, is if they see someone win a national show or go on national television and do Magic, and their choice is to go from that to posting on my page that they thought of me when they saw that, that means I own Magic in their head. That means that whole Magic space in their mind, that brand has got Joe Turner on it. Now, I'm not Copperfield or Angel or any of the popular David. I'm not any of them. But when they see these things in the news, in the media, or on social media, and they share it with me, all that is doing is reinforcing the fact that I own that space in their mind. And that's a great thing. So that's a great thing to do. I try to churn, when I meet people live, get them into my social media. When I meet people in social media, if I can possibly meet them live, I do it, because I want those two legs of my stool to connect. I want as many people to be live and electronic as possible. And then the third thing is referrals from past clients. Every time you work for someone, you ask them, who else can I work for? Who do you know that you could introduce me to? So personal connections, electronic connections, and referrals from past clients. That's the 3 pieces of my marketing strategy. That's the whole thing I do. I don't do direct mail yet. I've done it once or twice, but I've been successful in growing my business using this sort of three-pronged approach. I can't believe I shared it.
Well, something you'd mentioned, referrals and whatnot. This is something I actually do for my other business, and people liked it last time I showed it, so I'm going to share it again because, marketing and whatnot. This right here is a coin that we use for our business. It has $50 on it. It's worth 50. It's a $50 credit. If you go to the website and refer somebody else, you get one of these, and your referral gets one of these. So everybody gets a little something, and like this is like this is a coin. This is heavier than most of the coins I have. So like it's weighty. You feel it. It's not a magnet or a card that's going to throw away. Like you're going to keep this.
That's fantastic.
So that's just a little idea I use as my referrals. Instead of people getting like a coupon, I give you something physical in your hand.
Well, there's 1,000 tips and details underneath all of the marketing things, and I know you've got people who are far more experienced specifically in marketing than I am. But I mean, having a business card, I think it's important. You've got your face on it. You've got a professionally designed logo. You've got your website, some key bits of information and branding on there. I think having a quality business card is essential. These are details. I was going for strategically for someone who's just walking in the door to have a plan. Those three prongs are an effective way to start building your business. And that was useful to me. I didn't have a plan when I first started. I didn't know about growing my spheres of influence in that way, or expanding my network of contacts in that way. And so some of these things I learned by accident and just by finally banging my head against the correct wall. So there's that.
Absolutely. I hear that, man. You see me with a paper. I'm actually taking notes here. I got a question from Bill Montana. He was wanted to reference your reviews for a second.
Okay.
He was wondering, when you're reviewing a tape, what is the main three things you look for?
Okay. Well, I've been reviewing video for Genie for 14 years. I came into it because Matt Field at the time, Richard Kaufman approached their review staff and said he wanted to expand it. And Matt had seen some of the things that I had written and asked me if I would be interested. And so I've been there from VHS through DVD through downloads and online live lectures, but all this video. When I see it, I'm looking for someone who has something new to offer, or at least some kind of clever idea that advances beyond something that is passé, or just obvious. I want something that has a certain novelty to it. I want to see a performer who has prepared, and they didn't just show up on the day that the camera was turned on and expect to be a great teacher. They didn't just sit down in front of their webcam like I'm doing right now and put this together and then say, hey, let's burn this on a DVD and sell it. I don't think that adds value to the marketplace. I think it's important, and you show respect for your art and your audience by putting some work into your final production. And I look for good crediting. So I think that it's important to show respect for the people who have created the pieces that you're building on or that you're developing from. So those are some things that spring to mind immediately that I look for. If it is, and those levels have changed, by the way. What was, I think, an acceptable level of production for a DVD 8 years ago is not quite the same, because the market has moved on and has improved, and technology has given people more tools for free that you can use to create a really high quality DVD. That being said, the flip side of that coin is that if it's all just overproduced and the content isn't really solid and engaging, captivating really, then I won't care about it. I can look past my personal preferences in the types of material that most interest me, and I've given positive reviews to magic that I would never do or don't even necessarily find personally entertaining, but based on my criteria, it's new, it advances the art, it's well produced, it was planned and shot well, the technical elements are there, good lighting and sound, and it's recorded well, it's ultimately produced well, the close-ups are there, it's directed well. I like someone who it shows that they prepared. To call back that point we talked about at the beginning, preparation is king. It helps you avoid a lot of pitfalls. Does that answer the question?
That does answer the
More than
question.
3 things, but anyway.
It's not quite. It wasn't quite a list of 3 things, but I think it's fully within
I started with 3, and I kept going.
It turned into no. So moving off that back into corporate magic.
Okay.
Scott Anderson was wondering where you see corporate magic and really corporate magicians in 10 years. He says there seems to be a lot of interest in this form of entertainment more now than ever.
Okay. Where do I see well, the corporate magician is more than one thing. Magicians who work for corporate audiences, there's strolling, there's stage, there's speaking, there's illusionists, there's specifically close-up artists, there's trade show performers. So the quote-unquote corporate magician, there's a lot of facets to that. Trade show magic is very different now than it was even 6 or 7 years ago. I think that it will continue to exist, and I think magicians are going to continue to find work in the corporate market. It's just going to be a credibility that you have to show that you understand what they want and what their outcomes are supposed to be more effectively than showing up and say, hey, I can do this for you. I know how to do these tricks, or I can know how to deliver the show. I think that magic and entertainment in general in the corporate arena in 10 years, it's just going to be, you'll find more success the more you're able to let them know you're focusing on what their outcomes are supposed to be. And so if I wanted to, I'm not going to make a prediction that it's not going to exist. I think there will be more people doing corporate magic 10 years from now than there are today. But I think overall it'll be more competitive. And I think the overall level will probably be higher, because I think as budgets have changed during this last recession and they got smaller, people started cutting out fluff, or not even what they necessarily considered to be fluffy, but things that they were concerned other people might perceive as wasteful. Even companies who had money didn't want to be seen spending it, because it would be a negative perception. So the way to get that gig is to make sure that you're credibly adding value to what they're doing. And as long as you can tie what you're doing to their outcomes, that's the name of the game. So in 10 years, I just think it'll be more of that. I certainly think that there's probably some emerging technologies. I look at the things that Marco Tempest has done over the last 5 or 6 years. I would think that there's probably a burgeoning market for people who can really leverage that. It's not an area of expertise for me, so I'm going to have to build my market in a different way than on that, but I think there's a wide open space. I was in a cab in Las Vegas for a conference I was speaking at last couple of weeks ago, and on the screen in the back of the cab was a performer from the UK who's doing magic in a big television commercial campaign. And he was able to connect what he was doing specifically to a business outcome. So I just think it's not the way of the future. It's how the most successful people have done it in the last 10 to 20 years. And I just think it's going to become more important for people who want to be successful in the corporate world to have credibility if they're going to speak in front of an audience, that they're not just making it up, or they didn't just say, well, I'm a magician, but I'm going to fake some knowledge about managing a company so that I can speak in front of this group. It's going to be built on credibility and their ability to tie what they do to the specific outcome of that event and that company's needs for that event. And that's it.
All right. Kind of rolling into the next question, and this is a little bit more specific, but
Okay.
somewhat along the same lines. Andy Hoffer wrote in, and this one's a little bit of a long one. Says for someone who's confident in being able to entertain a large group, up to 100 plus for a mentalism performance on stage for up to 2 hours, has an act prepared and tested, but mainly presents to a small number of gigs in and around the hometown. How would you suggest getting started and expanding beyond to more public performances and corporate gigs?
Mm-hmm.
The main stumbling block being having still his main stumbling block is that he's still holding it down a day job.
Excellent. I see the question, and I will do the best I can to give what I would think would be a successful strategy or a good starting point. First of all, I don't know a lot of gigs where I would do 2 hours in front of anyone on a stage, unless, if you're doing like a theater show and you're planning to tour an evening with Andy Hoffer inside your mind to theaters, then maybe a 2-hour show would be something that I could take to market. But in the places where I normally work and want to work, an hour is about all I can stand, and it's all they want. 45 minutes is a sweet spot for a lot of events. If you're wanting to work the corporate after-dinner market, I would say have a 45-minute version, maybe a 60-minute version. Be prepared to cut it, and if you have some extra that you want to expand it, I don't know anywhere I would ever want to be on stage for more than an hour and a half. So first thing is he doesn't have one show. If he's got 2 hours, he's got 2 shows. So that's good. How to get started expanding it beyond to more public performances and more corporate gigs. First thing, website must look like you didn't just walk out of, I live here in Paulding County, Georgia. It's sort of an exurb of Atlanta, and it's partly rural, partly suburban, and if your website looks like it was made by a student at Paulding County High School or XYZ college around here, but by someone who didn't really know what they were doing professionally, then you're not going to work as effectively as if you have a really well-produced website. So preparing in advance that you have a quality website, probably going to have to spend some money on it, and could be $1,000, could be more. Maybe you can get it done for less if you find someone really good. But that's key.
Trade work.
I'm sorry?
I said trade work. Trade work's always good if you have skills.
You could barter. You could barter for it, absolutely. But step one is having a great website or something that looks above the standard, and that's something that gives a comfort level to the person you want to work for. And so that's that. So I would start with a website. To public performances, if you haven't availed yourself of the opportunities to present short, as in 20 to 30 minute versions of whatever it is that you do, to the civic groups, civic clubs, chambers, church groups. I don't know what part of the world Andy's in, but in my part of the world, we have
New York.
I'm sorry?
He's in New York.
Okay, in New York. Well, there's probably some kind of civic. There's Rotaries and Lions and Kiwanis and all of those things that you can go, and they need something every week. And getting in front of them with a solid 15 or 20 minutes that is engaging and entertaining. And when you present it, you say, and here's something that I'm going to show you that's out of my after dinner show. Maybe you'll enjoy it. You're using that opportunity to frame what you do in the environment that you want to work. Oh, this is a little something that if you were to see me at a trade show exhibit, you might see me doing this to gather a crowd. And why don't we just sort of pretend we're in that environment? So you're using that to market yourself and set the stage for the kinds of places that you work or that you want to work. So I would start by doing those kinds of events. In our area, I live outside Atlanta. There must be 1,000 churches, and all of them have senior adults who have lunch once a month, and usually have a program. And sometimes they pay, a couple $100. Sometimes they don't, but all of them know people. And if I get in front of them and I successfully entertain this room of 50 or 100 or 25 people, and they all know how to get in touch with me, and I've given them that call to action at the end of my show. I've had a great time performing for you today. This is what a great lunch. I'm so honored to have been here with you. And I'll just close by saying, if you know someone who's going to produce an event for a group of 200 people or less, then I'd love to talk to the people who are planning it. And so you've got my business card. Thanks for your time. Make a commercial out of it. There's nothing wrong with getting flight time and using it as an opportunity to market yourself and maybe make a little money in the process.
Sweet, man. Yeah, and unfortunately for me, I can't. I have no real input on going into the corporate world because I'm not there yet. I'm kind of where Andy's at. I have a piece that I have together, but for the most part, instead of I know he performs formally. I perform on the street. I bus. So I'm a little bit back behind that. But even the churches, that would be that's not something I had even thought of, to be perfectly honest, because I don't go to church. So it wasn't even something on my radar.
It's a market, and let me say, I don't live in Florida. There's a lot more retirement communities than there are here where I live. Where it's not just assisted living and the kind of people who need a lot of help, but it's more like active senior retirement communities. Well, right. They all have clubs, and they're looking for, they have organizations where people get together to have fun, and I don't know what they're doing, if they're going to play bridge and then have a barbecue, but that's a good, if you're just starting out and you're just trying to expand from where you are to someplace else, then that is one strategy, is to start by looking for those clubs. Now, are they going to meet at lunch? Yes. You might have to go over there during your lunch break and perform. There are groups that meet in the evening, so you might try to schedule that. Someone who's holding down a day job. Well, obviously the web is 24/7, but some of these other types of small events, maybe lunches, maybe breakfast, maybe dinner. You'll have to look that up. I would look for, if I wanted to go from Atlanta and I wanted to grow my business in, pick a city, I don't know, Jacksonville, then I might create a separate website or a separate page on my website specifically for the purpose of expanding into Jacksonville, and I'm going to keyword Jacksonville in there. I'm going to plan a vacation to Jacksonville, and I'm going to plan it around going down to look at areas, possible networking events, or the opportunity to have a meeting with someone from some event planning company that I've looked up down there, and I want to take that person to lunch while I'm on my vacation. Then you use those opportunities that you go to those different cities or places around you to meet people, and again, grow that circle of influence with people in the place that you want to expand. If it's someplace closer, if it's someplace that you can drive over and have dinner, you're doing your regular work during the day, but that night you're going to take your family out to eat, then why don't we drive over to this town that's 35 miles away for dinner tonight, and while we're there, I'm going to talk to that restaurant manager about, how have you considered having a restaurant performer? Maybe that's the kind of business, the kind of gig that I want to get. So it's just entrepreneurial mindset is I'm always representing my business, and if I want to grow my business, then I'm going to have to show up in the places I want to be, when they see me there, then they'll bring me there.
Right. Um, moving away from formal live marketing and into the realm of social media, just moving kind of around to another leg of the chair, so to speak.
Okay.
Chalk was asking what sort of internet marketing do you suggest that'll magicians and mentalists should look more into that maybe they're not?
I lost part of that. What sort of internet marketing does what?
What sort of internet marketing do you suggest for magicians and mentalists to look into to get more work? Maybe something that people might not be formally using, or I know you had mentioned a few programs and you kind of glossed over them real quick without mentioning
Right.
what they were. They were programs to boost tweets and boost Facebook likes and things like that.
I use very simple tools. I I don't pay for any Google AdWords or anything like that anymore. I know a lot of people have been extremely successful with that. Um, so I'm not an authority on the paid advertising side, but just the strategic use of free tools or very low cost tools, I think I have been reasonably successful. And I don't accept every connection that comes my way. I try to talk to the person first, or make sure that they're real. I have sort of segregated out the way I use LinkedIn compared to the way I use Facebook. On Facebook, I'll connect with everybody, and on my personal page, I'm connected with thousands and thousands of friends and magicians and colleagues around the world. On LinkedIn, I don't connect with other magicians very much at all. I can probably count them on one hand, just because I market differently on there, and it's not that I don't want to share. I mean, I'm on a Q&A, but I think it's smarter for me to sort of keep that specifically down to my clients and prospects more than just everybody in the world. What kind of internet marketing? Have a good Facebook page. Have it so that it's consistent with your website in the way that it looks and the pictures that you use. So consistent pictures, consistent branding. Have a quality logo. You can get Kyle Perrin or someone in Magic to do your logo, or if you know a great artist in your own circle of friends, then lean on them, but get a quality professional logo that you can use in multiple formats. I would say have your Twitter account, again, consistent with your brand and the promise that you're trying to make to the market that you want to work for, so that it looks like it looks like what they want. Again, when you look at me, my pictures I'm wearing a suit and a tie, and I'm pretty clean cut, and I look like I just walked out of a corporate meeting, because that's the kind of people that I want to resonate with. I have a friend in Jackson, Mississippi. His name is Dorian LaChance. He works kids schools and libraries mainly, and churches, and his choice of attire, his choice of font and graphics, and all just screams out, I'm going to rock your world. If you've got a room full of kids, he's going to own it. So that kind of consistency across all of your social media. I use a tool called Hootsuite, but there are others, TweetDeck and other types of tools that allow me to schedule out the messages, so that if I know I'm going to be out of pocket for a week or two, I can plan in advance to have things shared with my audience at certain times of the day, weeks at a time, or indefinitely. So I use that to share specific content. So I've got an upcoming show at a comedy club here in Atlanta. I'm going to do an evening in Buckhead, and it's going to go out at certain times every day, consistently from now until the day of the show. And so I'm using Hootsuite to do that. Then there's another tool called Buffer, which lets you just add things to a stack. So if I'm reading information online, I just read news sites or magazines, and I say, oh, that's a great article. I can click add that to my buffer, and then I set up a schedule in Buffer so that it shares that content out. And I don't care what the article is, it's just the next thing on the stack goes out. So I have one tool that lets me share specific content, and one tool that just lets me take the next thing off of a stack of relevant information that I want to share with my audience. And those two things help me have sort of a blanket of consistent visibility in my social media. And then as I'm doing my events, I'm going to tweet out something to point those things out before and after the event that I do. I'm going to share with my followers that this is what's coming up this week. And then when I get there, oh look, here's me at the airport, or here's the view from my hotel room, or here's the view of the stage or the conference room where I'm about to be, or the here's, had a great time. So there's things before, during, and after each event that I can tweet out live on top of the things that I've got in my planned coverage. And then also, if I'm going to be in a city, I'm probably going to look for people or contacts I'd like to have in that city, and specifically tag them in a tweet or a Facebook post when I get there, so that I've gotten followed by the Chamber of Commerce in some city that I might want them to see me. They know I exist, or a specific company, or if I want to work for, the Vidalia Public Library, and I know I'm going to be doing a private event there, but I want them to book my library show next summer. Well, then when I get there, I'm going to talk about the private event, but I may tweet the Vidalia Public Library and let them know that I'm there, and I'm looking forward to coming back, and that I have a library show. So I'm just always going to try to cross-pollinate and get as much use as I can out of every event that I do, and let that generate the content for my internet marketing. So it's not your traditional buy these kind of AdWords, do this kind of keyword search, do this kind of you can hire people to do that for you. I don't know the details. For me, it's about what am I personally going to do with my computer, my tablet, and my phone so that I have a consistent presence in front of my audience. And that's what I do.
Absolutely, man. Hey, now I wanted to quick and break, because I didn't realize how far we're already in. We're already an hour in. I wanted to real fast break. What was that?
Yeah, whatever. I feel like we're cooking now. Let's
Oh, absolutely. Well, since we're an hour in, I like to give people a chance for the contest. So about halfway in, I always like to do the contest now so that people have a chance to get everything in. What's up?
This is a copy of my lecture notes from the British Ring Convention a couple of years ago. There are close-up and stand-up ideas in here. Range of skill sets, a couple of things requiring memorized deck, there's a ring and string move that I have published in Genie, and there's a really easy card to wallet. So there's a Rose production for stand-up in here as well. So there's several things in here that might be of interest, and these are a giveaway.
Okay. And did you have a way that you had thought of you wanted to do that, or did you want to do radio contest style?
How about radio contest style? I'll let you pick the methodology.
All right. Well, I'm gonna roll fast message out. ALEX. I'm gonna throw my email up here. There we go. I just posted up my information, so you're gonna go ahead and email me, Turner. We'll say what, the 5th person to message me, Turner, go ahead and get the prize, and we'll go ahead and announce that at the end of the broadcast.
Perfect.
Was there any other? Was that the one?
No, I got a ton of stuff. Let's do the 10th person. Having reviewed DVDs for Genie for a long time, I've accumulated, literally hundreds of DVDs. So I thought maybe later we might talk about the way I choose content and the way I choose material that suits me. Some material doesn't suit me, but it may suit some of the people watching. So if there's anyone involved, anyone watching who's interested in flourishing, that's not something that fits what I do. But I've got 2 DVDs. This is a volume 1 of Flourishing Back to Basics. This is Cap Casino. So that DVD is a giveaway. So someone wants to hit you with the word back to basics, then they can have that, and I'll send it to them. It's my pleasure to do it. So there's a DVD, and I will include with that. This is a 2 DVD set, World XCM. So this is Extreme Card Manip. So this is really it's crazy good. I mean, these people know everything about how to do this. So this is stuff that is not for me, but it would be my pleasure to gift it to someone that is interested in it, and you will identify them.
All right. So, and you said background?
I'm sorry?
What would you say the word for the second prize was?
Let's say XCM.
XCM. All right. So what we'll do for the XCM prize, we're going to change this up.
Okay.
We're going to do the XCM now, and we'll
Okay.
give it, since your lecture notes are something that's a little bit more of high pro. I mean, that's something that's much more important to you. Let's go ahead and take that, and we normally do like a week long. We'll do this one until we'll say Saturday. Saturday the 15th. So you still enter Turner.
Okay.
Go ahead and send me Turner for the G11 lecture notes, and we will pick a winner in drawing form on Saturday for that. And then the 2 DVDs that you had out otherwise, we'll go ahead and message me XCM, and that's the one we'll give away at the end of the program. How about that?
Perfect. That's great. I'm going to include a bunch of other stuff with the lecture notes, by the way. So whoever wins the lecture notes on at the end of the week, I'm also going to include audio by Eric Jones. So fantastic coin magic, and I've got some assorted other things that I'm never going to do. So close-up and stand-up materials, and so it'll be a surprise grab bag.
Whoa!
That's the jackpot.
Right. Absolutely, just a total grab bag. All right, so that we'll handle the winner at the very end of the broadcast. But getting back to, I know we kind of hopped into the middle of a hot rolling session there. We were on quite a roll, but I had to break for that. I had going back in. I had a question that I thought, because we've talked a lot about marketing, but we haven't really talked about your personal career very much. And I think that's somewhat relevant because you did move from entertaining formerly in theater as well as maintaining a corporate job into magic. Siobhan asks what your first magic trick was.
First magic trick I ever learned. Okay.
Yeah.
When I was very, very young, I got a book, sort of it was a Disney book, a Mickey's Magic book, and there were some neat little tricks in there. I remember cutting a straw with a string through it, and the straw gets cut, but the string is still whole. And I remember one where you would put a bottle in the freezer, and when you took it out and put a penny on top and put your hands over the bottle, it would warm the air and the penny would jump. So there's some children's tricks like that. Really fun. The first sleight of hand magic trick I ever learned was a vanish of a coin, and it would reappear in your ear, and it's the old rub it in the elbow trick. You know that? So that 6th grade. My Sunday school teacher taught me that, and I was like, well, that is the coolest thing ever. And he did it with a nickel. And so that's the first, I guess I would call it, the first real sleight of hand trick. I had to manipulate an object physically and secretly to cause this experience to happen. And I still do it. I mean, I love doing that trick. It's just for fun. And then I would say the first professional prop that I had, if you want to define it that way, was when I was 10, I got a set of linking rings from Tannins for my birthday. My uncle, who lived in the city, went by Tannins and got me a set of linking rings. I had become very enamored with Doug Henning, and David Copperfield was on his way, and so there were these magicians on TV, and I'd seen the linking rings, and just, how can that be? It was baffling. I had no, are they magnetic? How is there? I had no idea, and I just was. That was something I just felt like I had to learn, and so that was. I got in the paper doing that trick. I got in the newspaper in my hometown doing that trick at a talent show. So the linking rings have been good to me. I know that people kind of look down their nose sometimes at them now. They're a little overexposed, but well done. It's still a beautiful routine, and that's the first, I guess, stage trick that I ever learned.
Well, and just to step on that point there, it's never about the trick. It's generally about the performer. It doesn't matter if you go through and show a card and it goes and disappears. You know that it's behind the hand.
Right.
It's back here. It's the idea that it can go away, not be seen, and that's a beautiful thing of manipulating hundreds of objects sometimes into something that's just pops. And I think the rings fall into that classic category where that two solid objects just cannot pass through one another. They're logically in your head, but you can't see exactly how it's done, and therein is the entertainment value.
Well, there's that, and then I think so important. The first time I performed at the Magic Castle, David Regal came to see me, and I was awkward and nervous and not as experienced as I am now, and so he said, "Joe, you've got an amazing quality that you're not leveraging, and that is likability." And he just, if people want to like you, and for some reason some people connect well, and he says you have a good ability to connect with an audience and they will like you very quickly. Maybe I'm harmless, maybe I'm a little boy next door kind of safe feeling around me. So I'm not a threatening personality. I'm not a imposing personality. So there's this, he says, leverage that. Well, I think that applies to everything. If you're going to be a performer with the linking rings, or for me, I find that very important in the corporate setting. If I'm trying to do a dark theatrical show, it's not a benefit, right? But for the kind of work that I'm doing, where I want to make managers and people who are maybe older and established in their careers feel comfortable putting me in front of their bosses, or feel comfortable putting me in front of the people they work with, putting their name next to mine in a program or somehow, then that likability, that safe quality it has value. It has monetary value. So but to go back to what David told me, if they like you, they'll like what you do. So whether it's rings or cards or anything.
Absolutely, I absolutely agree with that. Moving back into your own personal performances, I know you talked about rings and whatnot. Scott was talking. Scott Anderson. He says, Joe does a lot of different types of magic, from big stage illusions to close-up mentalism. What does he enjoy to perform the most, and why? Also, what does he find works best in the corporate market, and why?
Okay. I have performed and do perform some stage illusions, but it's not my focus. I have a stage background, and I'm not opposed, or I don't not want to do it. But for me, working in the corporate market in the way that I do, I tend to choose material that is more close-up and parlor, and depend on my ability to engage the audience as a presence on the stage to do my material. So I only do stage illusions if I'm doing really a local theater show, which I still do once or twice a year, a large theater show. But that's not the focal point of what I do. I prefer close-up and parlor. If I'm doing something on stage at a corporate group, I'm hoping they're going to have some kind of screens on the side, so there's image magnification, so that I could do something with a dollar bill and still have it be seen. So what works best for me in the way that I approach the corporate market is, can I check it in a suitcase? So that if I check 2 bags, I've got everything I need. And if I can't check it in 2 bags, I probably am not gonna do it in my main work. And that seems like maybe a silly parameter, but it's for convenience for me. I don't do things that require offstage assistance with thread or dancing handkerchief kind of things in the hold methods. I don't do anything that requires stooging or pre-show work because I don't always know that I'm going to have the opportunity to do that. So I've built my core repertoire around things that I can preset, walk out, and do, and then strike and put them back in my suitcase and go back to the airport. Now I'll open with a bottle production or something like that, where I may have to get something on site. Once I get there, I might have to buy a bottle of water or wine or something, but generally speaking, all of my props are the size of a suitcase or smaller.
That's awesome. I had a question come in that was actually referencing some things you had spoken about earlier.
Okay.
Shane Simmons asked, do these post scheduling apps services come across multiple social media sites at the same time, or do you have to schedule sets of posts for each social media platform? I'm assuming that's probably dependent on your program.
Well, for me, the main one I use is, I use 2, Hootsuite and Buffer. Hootsuite and Buffer, both of them will go across multiples. And so I can use Hootsuite, go in, create a post that's going to go out on this day at this time, fill in the details, and then click Twitter, Facebook page, and Google+. And so I can say send it to everything. I can choose how many specific ones or all of them that it will go to at the same time. Now, if I'm going to send it to a lot of things at the same time, I have to make sure that if I'm going to include Twitter, I keep it short so that it'll be within their 140 characters. But yes, to answer the first thing, those services will post across multiple social media sites. At the same time, in the case of Hootsuite, on Buffer, the way you set it up, you create a schedule for each of the social media accounts you want it to populate, and it will just go according to that schedule. So it's kind of hands-off. Once you create the schedule, it goes. One caveat I will mention now that we've talked about those 2 tools, and other tools like that. I see somebody mention TweetDeck. All of these tools, if you post using those tools, that post will not be seen on Facebook or on your Facebook page with the same audience, as wide an audience as it will be seen if you post it directly. It cuts down the reach of those posts that are automated. It knows. So all good things, they come at a cost. But I can schedule it to hit at different times of the day. So I can send the same post out, 9 a.m., 1 p.m., and 7 p.m. And so I hit at different times of the day and not have to do it 3 times. But if I posted it once myself directly on my Facebook page, it would have a wider reach in that one post. I hope that makes sense.
And I'm sure the more you use the programs, the more familiar you'll get with them. Are those both free programs?
I'm sorry, say that again?
Are those both free, or are they subscription-based?
They have Buffer is free, and Hootsuite is free. They both have free versions. I upgraded to the lowest cost paid version of Hootsuite because it lets me see, instead of just as in a list format, it lets me see a schedule in a grid format, so I can see days and times for a week or more at a time. And I just prefer to be able to see it that way. But you don't have to use it that way. You can just do it in a list format and do it completely for free.
Absolutely. I'll have to look at them. See, unfortunately, I was just invited to Twitter again because I don't use Twitter. I've never liked it, and I'm one of those people that aren't a big fan of social media.
Right.
So moving over from my personal life the way it was into becoming an entertainer was really difficult, having to like embrace social media. Now, like, I'm here and it's not so bad, and I'm hanging out with people and great. But that was
Well,
not probably the hardest thing with me, was even using it. Now I have to learn how to use these other tools to reach people more with the stuff that I don't have to have anything to go on about.
it's a tool, and it's to be used in the way that builds what you want to build. I mean,
Right.
but I will say I don't have to like it. Just because I don't like it doesn't mean I don't necessarily need to do it, because it's just going back to the way I phrased it at the beginning. It's not about what I want to do. It's about what my audience wants from me and how I'm going to deliver that to them. And that's the same whether you're talking about the way you market yourself. It's how you perform. I know a lot of magicians who know everything there is to know about recipes and no idea what the flavor is. Right? They know how to do everything, but they haven't got a concept of what the audience is supposed to experience, and so they're all recipe and no flavor. That is, a
That's a
problem,
beautiful metaphor.
and they'll never be successful in the way that they want because their focus is on, well, what do I like and what do I want to do, and I'm not opposed to artistic fulfillment and all of that. I want people to achieve that artistic expression, but to put food on the table and pay bills along the way, you also have to say, not just what do I want to do, but how does that solve a problem for someone else, or how does that meet a need for an audience that's willing to pay me to do it? And that part of it, I have to stop worrying so much about, or just temporarily, not ignore my personal desires about my art, but I have to think about, what do they want? What does this look like to them? What does this feel like to them? What flavor do they leave with? And if I ask my clients that and I ask myself that on a consistent basis, I'll have more success than if it's just about, oh, well, if I would just learn this other trick, then that's the one. That's the trick that's going to make me a star. No.
Yeah.
Okay.
I absolutely agree with that. We had a question from Luda. He said in response to a question that was asked in the FCM website yesterday, what are your views on blogging as a magician? How do you choose what you blog about?
Who do you want to read your blog? That's the first question. Blogging for magicians, it can be, am I blogging to magicians or am I blogging to potential clients? I know a lot of magicians who are obsessed almost with being known by other magicians. And they talk about magic as if they're talking to other magicians. And if your goal is to blog to magicians, then you choose what to talk about by what you think other magicians will find interesting. I love magicians, and I love Magic Club, and I love Magic Clubs. I'm a member of all of them, and I wouldn't have the career that I have now if I hadn't been, but it would suit me fine if no magician ever read my blog, because I'm not writing my blog for magicians. I'm writing it because I want people who are interested in me as a speaker and performer to interact with me and the way I think about things there. Now, so the first question, my views on blogging as a magician, I think you should do it. I think you should do it more regularly than I have done it in the last couple of months for a couple of reasons. But if you look at my overall blogging over the last couple of years, you'll see I've been reasonably consistent. So I think it's an important tool. It helps with your visibility online, specifically if you have your blog as part of your website. If you're still using, a blog as part of WordPress's website, you're missing an opportunity to generate consistent activity on your own website. So I think blogging is an important and effective tool for a magician or any entrepreneur. How do you choose what to blog about? Decide why you're writing your blog and who's your audience. And then you say, well, what would I want them to, what's interesting to them this month? What is something that I've done in the last 3 weeks or 2 weeks or last day that I think I can connect to something they're interested in? The most recent article on my website, on my blog, is about a trip I took in August. And frankly, none of my clients really will care what cities I went to. But if I can tie everything that every city that I went to something that's important to them, then that's something to write about. So if you're writing to magicians, it's different than if you're writing to clients. No magician's ever going to hire me for anything. Maybe a magic convention or something, but that's not. I mean, I can't feed my family working magic conventions.
Right. No, I hear you there. Actually, speaking of your family, I saw a question that references Kim, or excuse me, it was Kristen. Was it? Yeah, no, it was Kristen. Beyond the Rainbow. She says, I have 2 girls, 2 boys. The boys love what I do, but the girls have always been a little embarrassed because she's a clown.
Okay.
She wonders, does your daughter like what you do?
Yes, I think there was a time maybe in like the elementary elementary when they were elementary age, they really kind of dug it because I would go to their class once a year and do 15-20 minutes for them just for fun. Every other kid likes it if mom or dad is a magician. Maybe your own kid is a little resistant, but if every other kid thinks it's cool, then they'll like it. My daughter maybe was a little resistant in middle school and early high school, but she's kind of into it. I put her in the illusion. She's done a couple of illusions with me, a Temple of Benares and a mini cube zag. So she's gotten to be on stage, and she enjoyed that. So she has performed with me. My son has learned a little bit of magic, and he has picked up some card tricks, and we've played some things together like that. My daughter is currently a high school senior. My son is in 6th grade, so there's a good space between them. They like what I do. My daughter likes what I do, but it may be different because she's a woman and a clown, and so if her daughter perceives what she does as childish in some way, or beneath her level of sophistication, then she might not like it. I can see where there might be some resistance, but you just have to realize that if she's a successful person in her market, then I would just emphasize that. It's like if she doesn't want to say, well, what does your mom do? Well, my mom's a clown for children's events. You say, no, my mom owns an entertainment business. My mom is a professional entertainer who specializes in entertaining children, particularly, and so it's all about the presentation. And so I think I helped my kids understand what I did. I don't want them to just say dad's a magician. I want them to say, my dad runs an empire. My dad is an entertainment professional.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely.
And so I would say if there's some resistance to that, it's because of the way they are conditioned to phrase it. And so give them a different way to look at it and say, my mom is a specialty entertainer. She's trained and experienced in entertaining kids. She is she works as a clown, but as a professional clown.
And a good one at that.
So I would try that. Another thing that might help is if she has peers locally. I'm talking about Beyond the Rainbow. If she has peers locally in her market that she interacts with, let them brag on her in front of her kids and say, I wouldn't be the pro I am now without the things I've learned from her. Then it's credibility. It's a marketing job that it's a marketing and PR job she needs to do with her daughter. Have her call me. I'll take care of this.
You got this. Luda asked an interesting question, and it's I imagine that it's because you came from the corporate world, but we'll see what the answer is. He wanted to know what made you choose corporate markets.
What made me choose corporate markets?
Yeah.
I think it was the comfort zone of where I was stepping off from. I think if I had been a full-time teacher, and I was working with teenagers, and then I transitioned into full-time performing, I probably would have chosen that market because of my comfort level at that time. If I had been a full-time pastor or a youth minister or something like that, and then I transitioned full-time into performing, I would probably have looked at the church market or schools. So I think it was just a function of where I was at that moment, the kinds of contacts that I had in my first level of my sphere of influence at the time. Uh, I think that was really just where I was. It chose me. I went out and I mean, when I first started, I did a lot more kids shows than I do now. I admire people who are successful in doing that. When I first started out, I didn't turn down work. I still rarely, I try to find some way to leverage it. If not for me, I try to book someone else as an agent to get the gig so that I can grow my level of my contacts. But I chose corporate because of the comfort zone that I had with it at the moment that I needed to go full time.
Right. Well, and you did come, like you said, you did kind of come late out of the game into corporate magic, or really magic in general as a performer. How long were you performing before, or how long were you practicing, rather, before you started formally performing like that?
Well, I did shows as a teenager for pay, so I had some putting together a magic show and go sell it experience for, I don't know, two years when I was a teenager, early teenager. Let's see, I came back to magic, I guess a little before David Blaine hit, so mid 90s, 94, 95, 96. Because I remember being interested in it again when David Blaine kind of took over ABC and magic sort of exploded again with that. So I was doing it for fun at church and sometimes at work, and taking some weekend gigs during the late 90s. And then I went full time into it in October of 2000. So if we say 95, 96, 97, 98, 99, 2000, so 5 or 6 years before I went full time, and probably about 3 years before I started considering marketing myself as a part-time professional. I saw Gene Anderson's Part-Time Pro lecture about 3.5 years into my coming back to magic, and that, I think, was a turning point for me.
Well, and you've mentioned a few people, and I want to kind of combine a couple of questions up into one because I kind of feel they're of the same spirit. Who do you look up into the industry, and did you have any mentors coming through?
People I admire in the industry, in magic in general, my favorite working magician in Vegas right now is Matt King. Not that I have no aspiration to have a show like that in Vegas, but just the kind of material that he does is mostly about the scale of the kind of material that I really like. And I love the character that he's built and the way his show is put together. So that's my favorite show. So I look up to Matt King. I think my favorite magician of all time is Fred Capps. I don't have any desire to do a stage act like Fred Capps, but I think the way he carried himself on stage connected with people in the way that I would aspire to connect with people. You see him and you think he must be classy, he must be knowledgeable, he must be, so much fun to have at dinner. I would really like, and even when he's silent, I mean, that his silent act is, he still just gives off this aura of sophistication, and he seems just really classy. And so I aspire to that element of his performance. Other people I admire, I think Eric Mead is brilliant. Michael Weber, those types of people and people presences in the industry who connect magic with real world problems or questions and take that to audiences in such a smart way. That just fascinates me, and when I grow up, I'd love to be like that. So there's people like that. Mentors. There have been some people along the way. I mean, my cousin Clifton was older than I was and was interested in magic when I was a kid, and we were both sort of interested in it together, and he kept fascinating me with some other thing he would come up with. He was sort of a mentor. There have been some people in Atlanta, Paul Spinagle, Dan Garrett, Rolando Santos, have all had influence on me. Once you start naming names, I don't mean to leave anyone out, but Steve Bargatze has been an influence on me. A lot of people from Fectors, people within the IBM, too numerous to name. We could start with Sean. Farquhar right now has been nothing but encouraging to me. So as I came into magic, I had very few mentors and people that I guess I looked up to. And once I kind of got involved with the magic clubs, the horizons expanded, and it kind of just the whole industry exploded. And I find something to admire in a lot of people who have been instrumental. Gene Anderson, God bless him. What would I have done without that lecture? I don't know. He made me connect things in a way that I hadn't thought to before. Bob Fitch, I think. Now, but as far as personal mentors on an ongoing basis, I talk to Dan Garrett a lot, and Paul Spinagle. Those were the two who I think were the most connected to me in my transition here as I went through that process here in Atlanta.
That's great, man. There's one other question before we start wrapping it up that
Okay.
I've seen asked a few times, and I thought it'd be maybe you could share a nice story on this if you had a particular example you'd like to. It was asked, have you ever had a large illusion just go terribly wrong, and how did you handle it? Or really, have you had any illusion go wrong? Maybe an interesting one, maybe an interesting story on how you had to think on your feet.
Okay. Yes. If you do live theater, and that's what we do, long enough, then things go wrong. Stuff happens. I've had. I'm sorry.
Oh no, I was shaking my head. I was nodding my head rather.
So yes, a couple of things, and sometimes it works out miraculously well, and sometimes it's awkward. I was doing a show where I had a volunteer who I had gone through, and we had rehearsed the mini cube zag, and I was doing that illusion for an audience, and one of the wheels on the cube zag in mid-rotation bumped over, in a hotel when they put up those risers, it's not a solid surface necessarily, there's little bumps where the risers come together. Well, we had rehearsed it and done everything fine and smoothed it all around, and everything was great. And then we got to the rehearsal, to the performance, and in that time there had been a change made, and they had moved a podium from one place to another and had somehow the alignment of those things. So I went around, and as I went over that seam, one of the casters of the four legs of the illusion, the caster came off one of those wheels. Well, so now you've got a human being in a box on 4 legs, one of which is now shorter than the others, and I got to get that back in there. And so, and I'm a talking act, but this was being done to music. So I just had to hold it, reach over and grab the wheel and try to get it back in there without tipping the box over the other way. It's a horribly awkward moment on stage, and but what you do is, what I did was I got the microphone after we successfully completed it and said, who knew that there was going to be an additional element of danger in tonight's performance? And I think that what you can do is just accept that things are going to happen and do the best you can, and an audience is going to feel for you, and once something out of your control happens, the whole show changes from being just about that illusion to about how is he going to react to what has happened, whether it's a siren has gone off or the lights have gone out or the PowerPoint died, whatever it is. And so, it's a problem that you have to solve in that moment, but it's also an opportunity to really increase the value of your stock with that audience if you handle it well. So, I wouldn't say a canned line, but it's worth thinking about. If this goes wrong, what could I say here that would get me back on track? In that setting, I just reassured the audience that nobody was in any serious physical danger, but who knew that there was going to be this added element tonight. But thank you for your perseverance. Another thing that happened one time, and this was I was doing close-up for a company out of Wisconsin, and this was just one of those miracle moments. They had seen me doing card magic and card from pocket and da-da-da-da. So he said, I want to do it. And he took the card, he took the deck, and he shuffled them up and it was card and number, and he named a card and he named the number. And he dealt down to that number and took the 27th card aside, and he had said 2 of clubs. Well, I had no choice but to let him do it. I did not manage the interaction as well as I normally do, and he was part of a group that had been drinking, and they had seen me do this, so he took it, shuffled the cards, and dealt down to the 27th card and put that aside. I gathered the cards back, and so he's asked for the 2 of clubs. I'm going to cull the 2 of clubs to the top so I can do a top change or a double lift or find some way to get out of it, maybe do a color change. If I can palm it out, I'll take whatever card he did and do a color change to get it to be the 2 of clubs. He had taken the 2 of clubs. It was just by complete random chance. He had taken the deck, shuffled it, said 2 of clubs, 27, dealt down to 27, put it aside, and I looked through and saw the 2 of clubs were missing. It was a miracle. It was just one of those great moments. So it looked like it had gone wrong, but it hadn't. And so the lesson from that is, just because you think it has gone wrong doesn't mean it has. Just because you think something horrible has just happened, don't start apologizing yet. Start going into that toolbox and preparing, because it's possible you have a miracle and you just don't know it. So there's 2 situations where things went sort of wrong and how I handled them.
Those are both great, and that was something that I've learned a lot about recently is multiple outs and whatnot. There's a few tools that I've put in my arsenal recently that, like for example, card magic. I have access to some of Kenton's work because I'm in his inner sanctum, so he has a way, a multiple out variation of any cards. It doesn't matter what card it is, it's any card and it's out of your wallet. So things like that are also important. Having backups and whatnot. But those I've had it a few times. I watched an interview with a guy where he was guy just brought out a deck of cards, kind of like that. And he's like, shuffle, shuffle, shuffle. I'm gonna name a number. I'm gonna name a card. You make it be there, and the guy's just going, okay, and he's like, go ahead and do it, and he counted it down, and it ended up being the card, and he was like, and the guy just freaked out, right? And the magician asked later, and he was like, oh, come on, how do you do it? And he goes, luck.
Well, I guess just to call back to something I said earlier, if you're so focused on the recipe that when something goes off of the recipe, you panic. But if you're focused on the flavor, you wait and you don't panic and you see, well, what can we generate from this? And I hadn't planned an out there. I had some tools in mind, and I was going to cull the card and make something happen that I needed to happen, but that would have been a much less impactful flavor than what really happened. And so just don't take away the option of having a miracle if you don't have to. So.
Right. Absolutely.
Okay. Other question?
I think that wraps up just about all of the questions, and we're hitting about an hour and 45 minutes, so I think we're going to go ahead and end it on that note. We do have a winner. The winner for the XEM CDs, as well as the other one, was Jonathan Barr. So I already emailed him, and I'm going to be contacting him after the broadcast further for information. I'll go ahead and forward that to you.
Well, that'll be great. I'll put them in the mail.
Absolutely. Keep in mind that we do have until the 15th on the other contest. We do have entries for that, so I will be doing that drawing for your notes in the grab bag. And I'll go ahead and get in touch with CO here a little bit later and let her know what's going on with that. So beyond that, I want to go ahead and thank you so much for being here. This was really informative, totally super fun. You've been a complete joy to have. I want to thank Edward for putting a lot of these together, and really all of the admins over at FCM, because they've done a great job of participating and put all sorts of new good stuff on the site. Beyond that, thank you very much, Joe. This has been really, really good.
It was my pleasure. I've got several connection requests already on Facebook, so I'll get to those momentarily. Thanks, everyone.
All right, thank you so much, and we're going to end our broadcast there. If you want to hold up on the line, we'll go ahead and talk here in a second, all right?
All right.
All right, bye, guys.